Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. Today we've got a spoilerific lore special that might be covering the run-up to the next expansion, the one after Battle. But really though, the patch 7.3.5 PTR has loads of really interesting lore stuff. It's even dealing with how we get rid of our artifact weapons at the end of the expansion. So yeah, we'll start off with the juicy stuff, but there is lots of really interesting stuff to ponder after that. Part of why I love doing these lore videos is they're just so damn interesting, and it's like a fun puzzle. You can do so much reinterpretation of the various lines as new information comes out, and it recontextualizes everything. It's this big, ever-changing puzzle to keep track of, and there's also a complete mind blow about Anduin Wrynn. Let's begin with the fate of our artifact weapons. So, we defeated Argus, and using his energy, the Pantheon unshrouded Azeroth, revealing that Sargeras was having a cheeky little hump. Enraged by this interruption, he unsheathed his sword, not that one, and he stabbed Azeroth, leaving the sword embedded deep in the planet, like really deep. The sword is now pulsing energy into the planet on live, further corrupting it. A pretty damn bad situation for us. Patch 7.3.5 covers our attempts to heal this wound, and this comes through our favourite pebble, Magni Bronzebeard. Well, unfortunately the voice files haven't been data mined, so you'll have to make do with me. The Sword of Sargeras is poisoning the very lifeblood of the world. The only vessels capable of containing that power are the mighty weapons that you wield. Raise them up as one. Draw out the corruption from the Dark Titan's blade. This wording is very, very specific. The only vessels capable of containing that power. Containing. So, we use our weapons to draw the corruption out of Sargeras' sword. We don't destroy that corruption. We don't get rid of it. We contain it in our weapons. I think that is extremely important. And that could, when combined with some other stuff in this video, lead into the powder keg that sparks off the next expansion. So our artifacts are going to be the vessels that contain the immense corrupting power of Sargeras' sword. The sword of the Titan, or well, a Titan, the most powerful one, the Dark One, all that stuff. In doing this, of course, we literally save the planet from death. However, Blizzard have started to have our actions bite us in the arse down the line. We freed Gul'dan in Warlords. That, of course, led to Legion, in combination with the end of Warlords. Garrosh was kind of a problem of our making as well. Us, and then the main characters of the storyline. So it stands to reason that our actions now, at the end of Legion, are going to directly lead into future stories. We already saw so much of this in patch 7.3, and you probably noticed in my Void expansion video, there's just so much stuff there. And now, when you add in this and the fact that we've just pumped up the most powerful weapons in the planet with Sargeras' corruption, one of the most evil things you could possibly think of, well, that's a big thing. Now, we don't actually know exactly what the corruption is. It's red, so it's a departure from the usual fel green. It certainly isn't void either. Sargeras using void would be a bit strange because he's opposed to that. We do know, though, that it's enough power to gravely threaten the life of the most powerful Titan in existence. A portion of that power, think about this. Because we sucked it into our weapons, well, it just went into Xal'atath. I think that's really major. Xal'atath definitely is not our long-term friend. She would not want the Legion to destroy Azeroth, because, of course, Sargeras wants to destroy Azeroth to prevent it from being void corrupted. So she doesn't want Sargeras to succeed. She, therefore, doesn't want Azeroth to die from Sargeras' power. But she almost certainly is power-hungry. What she just got is likely the biggest infusion of artifact power that you could possibly imagine. Her concordance must be off the damn charts at this stage. So, it's pretty interesting what's going on here, but I think this line kind of compounds it.
The King of Diamonds has been made a pawn.
Of course, Magni's the one who has us put the power of Sargeras' blade into our weapons. In the short term, of course, the interests of players and the Void are aligned. Neither group wants the world's soul to die, because, from the Void perspective, you can't corrupt something that's completely dead. Now, I think that this Magni thing is one potential reading of it, but the other one, of course, is that Magni does give us the Heart of Azeroth in Battle for Azeroth. Now, the Heart of Azeroth is a artifact quality neck piece. It fulfills a similar function to our artifact weapon, so there could be something there. Either way, it seems like Blizzard is crafting a situation here that could really bite us in the arse down the line. And of course, we mentioned Xal'atath, but also Light's Wrath is the Shard of Anaru, and then there's a Luneth. They sort of, both Luneth and Xal'atath, talk to us and like they're actual beings, so how are they going to react to getting this big infusion of power? Yeah, there's a lot going on. We don't really know what's going to be done to the artifacts past this. How are they contained? Who watches over them? We don't know any of that, but suffice to say, there are a bunch of basically WMDs chilling out somewhere. They've just been pumped up with the most, potentially some of the most corrupting, evil stuff via the Blade of Sargeras. That's a humongous plot point that Blizzard has just created, and we'll have to wait and see where they take it. So with that big plot development out of the way, it's time to blow your damn mind. Okay, I saw this really interesting comment on Wowhead that turns the whole King of Diamonds line sort of on its head. So the King of Diamonds is a tarot card for a loyal, young, blonde man. That exactly fits the description of Anduin Wrynn. Another interesting tidbit is that we see Lorthamar refer to Anduin as Boy King. This is another person referring to him as Boy King, which A, does make sense, but B, it does sort of nod to the Il'gynoth line.
The Boy King serves at the Master's table. 3 lives will he offer you.
I'm still not sure if this could work, unless Anduin is somehow duped by a Void being, because he is a good guy at the end of the day. But it's time to put on the tinfoil hat, because, well, the Tomb of Sargeras, that area, used to be an area of major importance and power to the old gods. It is where Anduin went to pick up Varian's sword, and when he did that, he received a vision. The old gods are known for deceitful visions, so there could be something to that. I don't really think it would mean anything, but I think it's maybe a fun thing to think about. I really had no idea about the tarot card connection, though. If that is actually intended, that is an impressive level of dicking about and hint-dropping on Blizzard's part, so yeah, I'm pretty impressed. But next, it's time to talk about Alleria. She has some very, very revealing dialogue. So, as we know, one of the famous old god whispers is,
At the hour of her 3rd death, she ushers in our coming.
And no one really knew who the her was. People thought it was Jaina, maybe Azeroth because the Titan is female, or perhaps Sylvanas. Well, Alleria has some very relevant lines here. When she returns to Stormwind, she says this.
Sometimes I feel that I have already died twice. Once, when we were presumed lost on Draenor. And again, when gripped by the shadow of the fallen Naru.
If she has metaphorically died twice, then yeah, this kind of fits. She's set up for a 3rd death, and Alleria actually does seem quite sure about her fate.
Perhaps death is the true legacy of the Windrunners.
So Alleria is quite sure that she will die, and indeed, in the 1,000 Years of War audiobook, she talks about her voluntarily surrendering herself to her fate, even though she potentially would have an out. Though, as she says to Lothraxion, her taking that out would pretty much doom everyone. So it's a bit interesting, but I think it could be a red herring. The third death prophecy being a thing, and then her saying this in a voice line in this patch, it just seems like something Blizzard might actually plant there to throw us off. But that said, she does also fit the line,
Her heart is a crater, and we have filled it.
her family was slaughtered in the Second War, and then, the events of the audiobook in 7.3 are the filling of that crater with void stuff, but again, I'm not massively convinced, though I think she'll have a massive role to play in the future. Now, while browsing the Warcraft lore Reddit and Wowhead, I saw some speculation that she might sacrifice herself to kill Queen Ashara, who, as Wowhead rightly do point out, is insanely powerful, and she was insanely powerful before she was empowered by N'Zoth. This would be an interesting way to take things. Perhaps N'Zoth baiting Alleria into doing something brash to take out Queen Ashara, using Ashara therefore as a pawn, and in the process with Alleria's void stuff using that to free himself, maybe taking us into a final raid tier or being the spark for void expansion. Kind of interesting. What do you think? I mean, for me, she's the most interesting character in the game right now, so I'd rather she'd stick around. Turalyon is a pretty vanilla dude in comparison, kind of boring. I think she's the interesting character. So this actually isn't really where the interesting Alleria lore stops, though. So she also travels to Silvermoon City, partially to visit her homeland, but also in an attempt to bring the Blood Elves over to the Alliance, something that, of course, was tried in Mists of Pandaria by Varian, but was soon thwarted by Jaina purging the hell out of Dalaran. Now, this eventually ends in disaster. Alleria nearly corrupts the Sunwell. Basically, her coming into contact with it seems to draw out the void, specifically an ethereal nexus prince. She promptly is sent out of the city afterwards, but it's a very interesting sort of situation. After all, Il'gynoth does actually say this.
Its surface blazes bright, masking shadows below.
Now that very much does fit the Sunwell, so yeah, there really is just a lot of void stuff bubbling up here, and the idea of the Sunwell being corrupted by void and that being a major plot point, again, is kind of interesting. Maybe the void expansion involves a lot of these sources of power and Azeroth just being void corrupted and sort of bad things coming from that. And then in Void-related stuff as well, we also see High Mountain being attacked by Old God forces in the their allied quest, or their allied race quest line, and then also Mulgore being attacked by Void creatures. So there really is a lot of dark stuff going down, and from what we can tell of the content of Battle for Azeroth, there will be even more Old God undertones. A few of the new zones very much have Old God elements, and the first raid is a Titan complex, probably a very corrupted one given the story of the Zandalarian Battle for Azeroth. So I think a lot of this is just setting up the base conditions, setting up the kind of the storytelling toy box that Blizzard can pull from. So they've got things like the whole Alleria situation. They've got this, Sunwell event that just happened. They've got the fact that all of our artifact weapons are now full of Sargeras power corruption. Is that something we can trust? There's things like Xal'atath, which they've obviously paid a lot of attention to throughout Legion. Xal'atath's just undergone, this massive transformation of having power put into her. So there's that going on. There's the King of Diamonds thing, which could, of course, relate to Anduin if we're really putting on our tinfoil hats. There is a lot of stuff that it's really about how Blizzard arranges these plot elements after Battle for Azeroth, or maybe during Battle for Azeroth, to propel us into that Void expansion. I know a lot of people are a little bit trepidatious about Battle for Azeroth being a kind of PvP expansion. Not really literally a PvP expansion, but very much focused on that faction war. I think when we look at this, when we look at the zones of that expansion, I think it's going to be extremely lore-rich. Less in terms of broad strokes, universe-changing stuff, and more in terms of details, specific storylines, us actually learning a lot of stuff that will be very important in the future. At least that's my thoughts on all this crazy stuff that's going on. So, thank you very much for watching this video, and do you have any theories of your own? What kind of crazy stuff can you come up with all this new stuff that we found out about on the PTR? I'd love to hear. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.